story that I could tell you. It's a Sith legend. Darth Plagueis, the Dark Lord of the Sith, so powerful and so wise, he could use the Force to influence the midi-chlorians to create light. He had such a knowledge of the dark side, he could even keep the ones he cared about from dying.
He could actually save people from death.
The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural.
What happened to him?
He became so powerful. The only thing he was afraid of was losing his power, which eventually, of course, he did. Unfortunately, he taught his apprentice everything he knew. Then his apprentice killed him in his sleep. Ironic. He'd save others from death, but not himself.
Is it possible to learn this power?
Not from a Jedi. The tragedy of Darth Plagueis the White.
No.
All stories are relative. It's a Sith legend. Darth Plagueis, the Dark Lord, so powerful and so wise. He could use the Force to influence the midi-chlorians to create Eventually, of course, he did. Unfortunately, he taught his apprentice everything he knew. Then his apprentice killed him. Save others.
Is it possible to learn this
Not from a Jedi. Tragedy of Darth
No.
many abilities some consider to be unnatural.
What happened?
He became so powerful. The only thing he was afraid of was losing his power, which eventually, of course, he did. Unfortunately, he taught his apprentice everything he knew. Then his apprentice killed him in his sleep. Ironic. He could save others from death. Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
No.
I thought not. It's not a story the Jedi could tell you. It's a Sith legend. Darth Plagueis was a dark lord of the Sith, so powerful and so wise, he could use the Force to influence the midichlorians to create life. He had such a knowledge of the dark side, he could even keep the ones he cared about from dying.
He could actually save people from death.
The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural.
What happened to him?
He became so powerful. The only thing he was afraid of was losing his power, which eventually, of course, he did. Unfortunately, he taught his apprentice everything he knew. Then his apprentice killed him in his sleep. Ironic. He could save others from death, but not himself.
Is it possible to learn this power?
Not from a Jedi. Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
No.
I thought not. It's not a story the Jedi could tell you. It's a Sith legend. Darth Plagueis, the Dark Lord of the Sith, so powerful and so wise, he could use the Force to influence the midichlorians. He had such a knowledge of the dark side, he could even keep the ones he cared about from dying.
Save people from death.
Pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural.
What happened to him?
They became so powerful. Unfortunately, he taught his apprentice. Then his apprentice killed him. To save us.
Is it possible to learn this power?
Not from a Jedi. Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
No.
I thought not. It's a story the Jedi could tell you. It's a Sith legend. Darth Plagueis, the Dark Lord of the Sith, so powerful. He had such Unfortunately, he taught his apprentice everything he knew. Then his apprentice killed him in his sleep. Ironic. Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
No.
I thought not. It's not a story the Jedi would tell you. It's a Sith legend. Darth Plagueis was a dark lord of the Sith, so powerful and so wise, he could use the Force to influence the midi-chlorians to create life. He had such a knowledge of the dark side, he could even keep the ones he cared about from dying.
He could actually save people from death.
The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural.
What happened to him?
He became so powerful. The only thing he was afraid of was losing his power, which eventually, of course, he did. Unfortunately, he taught his apprentice everything he knew. Then his apprentice killed him in his sleep. Ironic. He could save others from death, but not himself.
Is it possible to learn this power?
Not from a Jedi. Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
No.
I thought not. It's not a story the Jedi could tell you. It's a Sith legend. Darth Plagueis, the dark lord of the Sith, so powerful and so wise, he could use the Force to influence the midi-chlorians to create life. He had such a knowledge of the dark side, he could keep the ones he cared about from dying.
Save people from death.
The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural.
What happened?
He became so powerful. Anything he was afraid of was eventually unfortunately, he taught his apprentice. Then his apprentice killed him in his sleep. To save others.
Is it possible to learn this power?
Not from a Jedi. You ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
No.
I thought not. It's a story the Jedi could tell you. It's a Sith legend. Darth Plagueis, the dark lord of the Sith, so powerful and so wise, he could use the Force to influence the midi-chlorians to create Unfortunately, he taught his apprentice everything he knew. Then his apprentice killed him in his sleep. Ironic. He could save others from death, but not himself.
Is it possible to learn this power?
Not from a Jedi. Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
No.
I thought not. It's not a story the Jedi could tell you. It's a Sith legend. Darth Plagueis was a dark lord of the Sith, so powerful and so wise, he could use the Force to influence the midi-chlorians to create life. He had such a knowledge of the dark side, he could even keep the ones he cared about from dying.
He could actually save people from death.
The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural.
What happened to him?
He became so powerful. The only thing he was afraid of was losing his power, which eventually, of course, he did. Unfortunately, he taught his apprentice everything he knew. Then his apprentice killed him in his sleep. Ironic. He could save others from death, but not himself.
Is it possible to learn this power?
Not from a Jedi. Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
No.
I thought not. A story the Jedi could tell you. It's a Sith legend. Darth Plagueis, the dark lord of the Sith, so powerful and so wise, he could use the Force to influence the midi-chlorians. He had such a
He could actually save people from death.
The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some
What happened?
He became so powerful. The only thing he was afraid of eventually, unfortunately, he taught his apprentice then his apprentice killed him. Save others.
Is it possible to learn this power?
Not from a Jedi. Ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
No.
I thought the story the Jedi would tell you. It's a Sith legend. Darth Plagueis, the dark lord of the Sith, so powerful he could use the Force to influence the midi-chlorians to create light. He had such a knowledge of the dark side, he could even
All right, man, we're live. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Talking. All set up. Make sure you guys can hear Adam, and make sure we're all right. Cool. They should be able to hear you now. Awesome. Cool. All right, guys, welcome. And because, well, I don't know. Was it another? Yeah, it was a little bit longer. Yeah, we've been working. I've been busy. My computer crashed. It's been quite a bit, but we're here. We're back. Chris, hopefully, the plan is to continue our little. First off, what's up, Adam? Thank you.
Hey,
I hope everything's been good with you. It's been a fun week in the world of Star Wars, and it's so funny because I've been meaning to keep going with our review of The Mandalorian, and so this week was episode 4. What was the name? What's the name of the episode? I can't remember. Oh.
The Siege.
The Siege, thank you. Oh my gosh, I appreciate that. Yeah, so we're going over that episode. I did watch it recently, and so it is in my mind how as far as plot goes and character development and all that fun stuff. But of course it ties directly in with some recent Star Wars news, which will go, oh, you guys already know what's going on if you follow Star Wars at all. So we'll go over that and yeah, just have some fun. So like I said, we're going to talk about The Mandalorian again, episode 4, season 2, The Siege. A lot of cool stuff happened in this. Coming into the episode, we are limping. We're like, how did this ship make it off of that frozen planet to begin with? Like,
did we talk about that?
Nothing left?
Because I definitely, when I watched it, that was the first time during The Mandalorian I was like, okay, this is stupid because they punched a hole through its windshield. Like that, it can't fly. It can't fly in space anyway. There's pressure in space.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That was the first time where I was like, because when it happened, I was like, whoa, how is he going to get out of this? And then I was like, oh, okay, he's just going to fly away. Sense makes none. So I don't know about that. But yeah, limping is a fair way to describe it, that's for sure.
The way that this episode started cracked me up because we both have like little kids in the house. And this episode started with them like in the ship, and he was trying to get Grogu.
Yeah, that I laughed out loud.
And it's just like, it more reminds me of like of Lila, because my daughter, because when I'll ask her to do something, like sometimes instructions just go complete, like she doesn't get like, so I'm like, oh, can you just grab me like the milk out of the fridge? And she like,
yeah,
just blindly grabs like the juice. I'm like, no, the milk. It's like eggs. It's like, what are you? But so like all parents everywhere like definitely sympathize with that moment.
Behind you, look down on the floor. Behind. He just spins in a 360. Huh?
Yeah, exactly.
It was pretty spot on. Whoever wrote that scene definitely knows exactly what it's like to try to get a kid to do anything remotely like what you're asking them to do.
Yeah.
But no, I remember watching it together, so we were both dying because we're so familiar with Rivers being like that. And then he shocks himself and barbecues himself a little bit.
Yeah, how many times, especially having, I know daughters do this too, but sons tend to be a bit rambunctious. Don't run, wham! It slams right into something. You're like,
yeah, just yesterday, we shove up snow and it's all icy. He's like sprinting down the sidewalk. We're like, no.
We told you. Yeah, no. We always say, like, sometimes you have a kid who has to burn their hand first before they know it's hot.
He's
But yeah, so the episode, because I think it was really cool, just again establishing they're drinking some soup, and again I'm confused as how the ship is still even flying at this point, because I know now this point we've already made repairs, so I think they've already made repairs on Trask, and so it's like the Mon Call had taped everything together basically, and they weren't going to be able to make it. So the ship is somewhat together, but barely. So we're like I said, limping over to they have to go back to Navarro. We get there and it's a whole new ball game. Everything's different and reintroduced. But Cara Dune's kind of gone through like, I guess, like a sort of like a little bit of a character arc within this somewhat. Like she's like kind of cleaned up her act and she has that little moment with the weasel. That thing was. So, she's gonna interact. There's schools she's cleaned up the town. There's schools now. And so when we first shaking down these aliens, I don't even know what those ones were called. They look what they're called. They're so crazy. Yeah, there's so many crazy looking aliens in Star Wars that it's impossible to remember them all. Like even the other day I was reading a comic book and it was the one that has like the head that like top like a snail or whatever, and it was a Jedi, and I was like, I don't remember seeing one of those as a Jedi before, and it was really, but I'm like, I have no clue what that is or what it's called. But yeah, there's too many sometimes. But either way, they were the underground thing, and so she comes in, like you said, guns blazing. Okay, I say like you said, but you said this off stream, but. So she comes in guns blazing, and this is where she, like, gets the guy on her back and does, like, this crazy rollback, and she shoots into the... And it's... it's super intense. But you think that she's about to, like, steal all this stuff, but obviously she's going to return it because she's a marshal now, and she's good. But up to this... I'm going to ask you, because I do think we have enough parallel views where it'll work. But up to this point, what do you think of Cara Dune's character arc? Leading up into the beginning of this episode.
Yeah, I said it off mic a lot, but she's the character from The Mandalorian that I have the least interest in, for sure. And it's not close. I don't like her as an actress.
Oh, hold on. Oh, did I lose you?
It's gonna be. I'm coming back.
Hold on 1 second, guys. Sorry, we lost Adam for a second. We're live, so crazy stuff happens. 1 sec. One second, and there we go, guys. Sorry about that. Yep, I can hear you.
So you won't have my headphones. Anyway, yeah, she's my least favorite part of The Mandalorian, even before this. So I just didn't think I don't think she's a talented actress. So I dab with her. I'm not an MMA fan either, so she didn't have recognition to me. Like I was an MMA fan, and I don't have that. I don't care. And she's just not. She's an example of character to me, like a character that they throw in. They're inevitable because it's such a huge universe, but like sometimes they'll be in the games or the comics or something. It's rare that they're in the movies, but they're just an archetypical video game character. Like she like
right.
Okay, that's enough. I said, Mike, bunch. Get some water if you're gonna choke. I'll make you choke. She gets some. She's just a Halo game. Set it off Mike a lot, but I just her big gun, and she's intentional to me.
Okay.
There was some parts semi interesting in that episode in the first season where they were on that planet where he had to save the town from the Imperials, but other than that, even that would make her not as interesting as other characters in the show, and that's the most interesting she's been.
Right.
So I don't think that she holds up when compared to the rest of the show, because the rest of the show is pretty unique to Star Wars. It's pretty unique to not even the comics and the games and stuff. There isn't really a Mandalorian type story in Star Wars. You throw her in there, and she's just a cookie cutter action video game character. Yeah. And on top of that, she's just not a very good actress to me. So I'm not that excited when I see her. Prefer Carl Weathers to her. I prefer Bill Burr, who I don't really like. I prefer him. Like all the other recurring characters from The Mandalorian, I think.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if they gave her some backstory with the Rebel Alliance, and Iran is a little bit interesting. And
Yeah, that's
her
what
face
I thought
tattoo.
was cool.
It's kind of cool, but it's also not cool enough to make her interesting to me. I guess. Like, is she cool if there was some? I don't know. There's just so many cool characters. Like the IG droid is cool, and Bill Burr is cool.
Yeah, the IG droid is actually much cooler. Small story arc was by far one of the best in the show so far. Like, not even just compared to hers, just in the show so far, the IG storyline was so good.
And like the fact that he doesn't trust droids, and he has to take his time. There's a lot of compelling stuff there, and she's just I'll just smirk and shoot my big gun, and
she's had some moments throughout the show whenever I feel like you said, when the like had that huge hole and flies off the planet, and you're like, okay, this is where the show's getting a little funky for me. And whenever I have those feelings, it's usually a Cara Dune related moment where I'm like, this is like you could ease up off the cheese just a little bit. Like, sometimes Dune is a bit much.
For cheesiness, and there's a time and a place for like certain characters to be cheesy, but her character seemed to me to be the weakest written character, the weakest acted character, and just the least compelling character. And I mean, like, if I want to play Halo, I'll play Halo. Like, I don't have anything against Halo characters. It's just that crossover into what Star Wars means intellectually very well. I think Star Wars is a risk, and she's not that deep a character to me.
That being said,
and I mean, I'm sure there's gonna be a lot there who disagree, who she means a lot to them or whatever, and that's cool.
But that's Star Wars
for everybody. Right. You might have been trying to go for that Halo neckbeard demographic pejorative. I've been a neckbeard before, but she's just not for me personally. And I know we'll get to everything going on for her Wars,
the actress who plays her.
Right. And that just adds to it. I mean, one of those people that like, if there's an actor or a director I really don't like, it takes me out of what I'm watching. And fortunately with Star Wars, it's been pretty rare for me to have to be like, well, okay, I really don't agree with something that person's done off screen, and now I don't really want to watch them on screen. So I mean, she's this week where I just didn't like her personally. And there are times where it takes me out of Star Wars, but I do think that my view of her in The Mandalorian isn't tainted by my view of her outside of Star Wars, to the point where I would think it's cool if she wasn't that way outside of Star Wars. I just don't think she's cool anyway. That just adds to it.
Sorry, I'm gonna cough right in the mic. So that's the thing. Going into right at the beginning of the episode, when she jumped in, I felt like I wasn't as excited when I first kind of saw her character come on. When you first meet her, and it's like this bar scene, and when I see her again come back, and kind of like, all right, cool, and then she had her fight scene, and I felt like it was cool, but it was a little overdone. And then, like you said, I felt like as the episode progressed, basically Mando has to go back. Him and Grogu, they have to repair the ship. Now, there's some nefarious goings on the planet that they need. And now, also what I thought was interesting, much of an aside, but I thought it was really interesting how on these planets, they have these really small areas that seem to like rule over the whole planet, right? Like, it's this little town, but then they're talking about like planetary matters, like, oh, if we get rid of this thing, trade for the entire planet could work out. I'm like, that seems very
it's in general, I think, and I've always wondered about that, even since for years, because I wonder if it's an example of, because the galaxy is so large, the species are so spread out, so the worlds are less populous. Like, it's not like there's
I never thought that.
15. There's not 5 billion people per planet. It's 20 billion people split up between 15 planets. That's, call it in planets like Coruscant, and
which are super overpopulated.
Right. right, and stuff. So I
Right.
think that that's sort of a Star Wars, not trope, but just a theme, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of planets are like that, and some of them aren't populated at all. Like you look at uh, Hoth
Yeah.
or Dagobah, and it's not that they couldn't be populated. They have vegetation and well, Hoth doesn't, but they've got wildlife
Yeah.
and water and stuff. And then Tatooine is populated, but similar to
Oh,
what
right.
I don't know the name. I don't know. I just feel like that's a Star Wars thing.
Yeah.
But you're right. It is. Uh, each planet is thematically around one. Not only that, but it's also each planet is one like well, I can't think of the word.
Like biome.
Type of, like you have desert,
Yeah.
but it's a planet,
Yep.
and you've got snow, but it's a planet,
Right.
and you've got lava. It's a planet. Biome is a good word for it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just Star Wars, and I've always been able to suspend my disbelief about it because it's been so long that I've consciously
Yeah.
thought about it that I don't even have to think about it. But you're right. Technically, there's a lot that goes into it, and maybe a story there somewhere where George Lucas meant that the many are governed by the few or something like
Right.
that.
Yeah. Knowing George Lucas,
But
probably something like that. Yeah.
right. But you're right. It is like one city on the planet controls the planet, and
Yeah.
every planet.
Yeah.
And there's like two cities, and they don't get along, and you have
Right.
like a Romeo and Juliet scenario. But for the movies and stories and the shows, for the most part, you're right. It is like it's a pretty unilateral decision coming from one
From
place,
one
for
place,
sure.
yeah. You have one governor, like one Grief Karga, and he's calling the shots for the whole planet. And I mean, he's basically an
Yeah,
ex-criminal, like,
right.
and who like slid himself into power. Like I don't know. That's kind of like, and then well, we'll talk about the end of the episode when we get there, just because I did think the end was actually, uh, I guess, interesting, but worth talking about anyway. So yeah. Anyway, we have some stuff going on this planet. The Empire's still there, and they need to not figure out why. They just want them to go. They don't really care why. From what I remember, I believe they think it's like a weapons thing. Like they're still building stuff there. So
Yeah.
they just got to go. Mando's there, so they just clear him out. We're just gonna blow the place. And then zoom out. It's cool because we get to talking about revisiting characters. The blue guy, the Mithril, his character's name. Oh, gosh,
I don't know either.
I can't remember it.
The guy who's that's when he gets flustered.
Yeah, he's hilarious. He's a funny character. I like him. Him and Grief Karga's back and forth, I thought was really good. How he kept like not wanting to like go about with it. He's like, I'll just stay with the ship, man. And Grief Karga's like, dude, like,
I kept waiting. I like his character because he seems like the kind of character that would eventually double cross them to do something selfish. Just not even like in an evil, conniving way, just in a way to whatever is going to get me through the situation, I'm going to do, even if it screws you guys. And so I was kind of waiting for that to happen, honestly.
Yeah.
And he doesn't really do it, which I think is kind of cool. That makes his character more interesting than it would have been if they went the easy way with the writing, I think. But I agree. He is really funny. Their back and forth is funny. I liked his back and forth the first time we saw him in the very first episode with Mando.
yeah.
I think I told you this story. The first time I watched the show, for some reason, it was the first thing I ever watched on Disney Plus, and for some reason, Disney Plus was in German, and so the show's audio was coming out in German, but the first, I don't know, 3 or 4 characters you see speak in the universe are either aliens or they're on an alien planet.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know German, so I just figured they were speaking some weird alien language. So I got like 10 minutes into the episode. I was like, well, they're not showing subtitles, which Star Wars sometimes show subtitles and sometimes they don't, and they expect you to sort of get what's happening through context. Right. So maybe they're just really committed to that. Good job, buddy. So I was just waiting for it to make sense, and then maybe like 12 minutes in, I was like, what the hell? Carl Weathers started talking. Carl Weathers was speaking German, and I was like, okay, that's German. Or something. I was like, okay, over in English.
But no, I like his character, even though he speaks English and not German, or basic
yeah.
and not German.
That's so good.
He is a cool character. He's one of those, you know, I forget his name. I think Turk from the Marvel Netflix shows. I forget the actor's name. He's a black actor. He's in all the shows, but he's like an arms dealer and a drug dealer.
Yeah.
But the good guys always catch him, and he always ends up helping them because he doesn't want to go to jail. And he's like the crook with a heart of gold type character.
Yeah.
And I think that's more interesting than the crook who double crosses them and does what's right for him at the end or whatever.
Yeah.
But he is funny.
Yeah, that was great.
Sure.
And like you said, he was really being in the first episode. I think it's so difficult. I think it's more difficult than people. I mean, I don't act. I'm not an actor, so I guess I shouldn't presume to know how difficult or not difficult it is. But having to like get emotion through with a helmet on, I assume must be difficult. Like trying to get any sort of anything out, because you usually use facial expressions, so having a helmet on must be tough. So being able to sell like who the Mandalorian is, like 10 minutes of the episode, was really crucial to having someone funny opposite of him, or someone like something that's more humorous opposite of the Mandalorian, because you were able to kind of establish immediately like, that whole line, I can bring you in warm or bring you in cold. Like, so even right off the bat, we know like, all right, this guy means serious business from the jump. Like,
yeah, definitely established in part because of how his personality is juxtaposed to the blue dude.
Yeah.
Because the blue dude is so blatantly not that way, so it shows off how the man, how Din is that way.
Yeah. Which I thought was great. And then so bringing him back, and then immediately he shoots that like stuff out of his neck. Like,
yeah.
That was really good. I was like, that's hilarious. But so obviously he's not happy to see Mando again, but they make their way to go take care and blow this place up. Funny, little happenings along the way. But the big stuff that goes on really in this episode is that it's not a weapons place. It's a lab where they're so it looks like a clone. And then they play this message from, or a botched clone. It looks like it's a poorly made clone if it is a clone. It's not well done at all. So it's like guy it's just bad. And some people say it looks like Snoke. I think it's too difficult to tell at this point. But, obviously my goal is that as you guys watched through these episodes, go back and rewatch The Mandalorian a little bit, or through the whole thing as you rewatch these, so you can kind of maybe get a different look at them, or just get a different perspective on a storyline you might not have looked at before. But so if you do go back, rewatch that part, because he plays the message from the scientist, the clone scientist, whose name is going to escape me because I'm terrible with names today. But that in that message, he says that they didn't get enough, or from what blood they had from the specimen, which we can assume is Grogu, is gone. So they don't have any more. They need to get more. So we know that Moff Gideon is still hunting down Grogu at this point, and then that's when the action takes off, because they realize, oh crap, if they know we're here, Moff Gideon's probably going to send. And you know what I do like about that moment is that does remind me very much of like the Empire from the old, where it's like the minute the Empire like knows you're anywhere, like on Hoth, like, so like the minute that the probe droid found them, it was like all of the Empire within like 10 minutes was on Hoth. And I just think that's like, the coolest thing, or that was Empire when it was big before it was taken down, was that it was so overwhelming. It was just like, within seconds, your whole planet could be overtaken and
out of the sky.
So
Yeah. Yeah, not only would it not take a lot of effort, but there's no second guessing it or remorse or calculation in their decision. They're just going to do it because that's their
yeah,
might. I agree. The thing I thought was interesting about the episode, and I thought it was going to be like the overarching arc of the season, and then it wasn't. Was I didn't immediately assume that Grogu was the specimen. I thought maybe they I wonder who it is, and then they needed Grogu because of Grogu's midichlorian count, and that's why they wanted Grogu in the first season.
right.
That was what I was thinking might happen. It's possible that they had Grogu because they did have Grogu for a little bit before Din went and got him, and they got a little bit of blood out of him. I just assumed that there was somebody else that they had gotten blood from. They had done what they wanted to do. They had gotten Grogu because they needed more midichlorians,
Yeah.
and then they never got to use him because Din came and got him. So now they need Grogu back. That was always sort of my thinking. But it could be obviously either. And then, like you said, I wasn't convinced that it was Snoke either. In fact, I thought it was going to be Shadow Troopers, like Chris and I talked about on the last episode. I didn't think it was Snoke, but I know that the prevailing, popular pick is going to be Snoke. Seemed likely to me because Snoke is more of I don't know, more of a sinister presence than that, I think.
Yeah.
But that's just, if they were going to show him, it would have been something more like, oh my God, there's Snoke.
Yeah.
That was me. I thought it was either going to be like Reborns or Shadow Troopers.
Yeah.
But it could be anything. Which they could be trying to
make a new clone army. This could be their attempt at rebuilding a clone army, and it goes badly, and then that's how we wind up with them using children for the First Order, which is how they build that army. So it's like this could be like the first.
Why would they care about the force sensitivity of a clone army?
Yeah,
I guess Luke, but it's not like there's like a Jedi Order. Like if they were going to care about the clones having force sensitivity, they would care in the Clone War era. You know what I mean?
Right.
I thought it was going to be. That's the only reason that Snoke was a possibility, because the Force has something to do with it. It's and the Empire is so callously anti-Force in the original trilogy, where there's even skeptics. There's people who don't even believe in it, and Vader takes offense to that.
Right.
So now to see them sort of farming for it, I thought it was going to get really juicy, and then it didn't really end up going anywhere. Like we already talked about it, but maybe Gideon is trying to take the Force and use it as a weapon, or at people who are Force sensitive and use them as weapons, which would be interesting.
Yeah.
But I was convinced that they were going to be Reborns or Shadow Troopers. But there's no reason for them to be growing a whole army of anti-Jedi clone troopers because Luke. It's not like there's Mace and Yoda and Ki-Adi-Mundi and all this. But
that's true.
I don't know. Those two things from this episode were two things that I thought would make really cool story through the season, and neither one really paid off the way that I would have expected it to.
Yeah. I don't know. The only reason I don't know if it's Snoke is because I feel like it's just a little too obvious. And so, like, to me,
they're gonna make you think it's Snoke, and then they're gonna throw you this huge curveball, and it's actually some, Mara Jade or something crazy, and do anything. So I don't know. I'm sure season 3.
I mean, that could have been Palpatine himself, like the vestiges and remains of like what's left of him in like that might not have been clone juice. That might have been a Bacta tank. I mean, we know what Bacta tanks typically look like. But...
that's a really good point. It could have been Palpatine and more than just Bacta to keep him alive. They have to, because he's already 1,000. So I mean, they have to give him midichlorians to keep him going, or maybe to keep his brain function, or there could be a lot.
That's true. It's already like 1 million years old.
The only thing the only thing that throws me off of it being for Palpatine is the Doctor isn't very cool to me as a character, and therefore him being that in control of somebody that neat.
Dr. Pershing, that's what it was.
They're sort of fate doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But I don't know. I feel like if it was Snoke, it would have paid off already. Or if it was Palpatine, it would have paid off already.
Yeah.
And also there's more than one tank, you know? So I just, I don't know. I don't really, I have a lot of ideas, but I always have this problem where my ideas from a Star Wars perspective, like a fan, like if I was writing it and then reconciling that with the fact that it's a TV show and it needs to like pay for Disney Plus subscriptions. So they're going to show the things, not necessarily the things that I would show. You know what I mean? So there's always times I have to reel myself in and be like, okay, it's not going to be Revan or, whatever. It's going to be something silly. And that's okay because it's Star Wars. But I do have to sort of course correct my own thought process sometimes because I do go off the rails into my own theories about everything. Yeah. And but I hope that they deal with it more in season 3 because, like I said, whether it was Grogu they had harvested or whether they had already drained somebody dry and did Grogu, I thought it was more compelling and also more like sinister, like the fact that it could be, some Jedi from the past just withering away and they used it up. So now they need Grogu. That to me is crazy. And I also thought that, I remember after this episode.
Oh man, yeah, that's scary.
I also thought that maybe after this episode, that that it was that was going to be Ahsoka's storyline, that she would have found out that they had some old Jedi drained like a raisin, and she was going to have to come back and try to rescue that Jedi because she's Ahsoka. That's sort of what I thought was going to happen, and there were two separate storylines, which is fine. But like I said, those two things, the fact that they had drained somebody and maybe Grogu was who they needed next, and whoever's in the tank, I thought those were really compelling storylines that this is kind of the only time they come up. Yeah. So it's interesting to see, like I said, season 3 is going to be interesting for a lot of reasons now. Yeah. But it'll be really interesting to see whether that comes back up or if it just maybe isn't to another show or something else.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what parts of The Mandalorian they tie into each new show.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's just so, and there's a bunch of ways it could pay off. I just hope it does. I hope they don't just pretend it never, which I don't think they will. But we'll see.
I think. And then the other thing is now,
I'm watching the episode now because I didn't watch it before talking about it, and they're like jogging out of the facility after they watch the recording of the doctor, and I don't like Cara Dune. She's the worst.
I will say she has. I think I know the moments that you're kind of talking about because she has a couple moments, like even when they find that like old school decommissioned like Empire. That's pretty neat. That she drives out of there. They're like, hiding behind, some stuff, and the blue guy's like, oh, we're trapped, we're pinned down, and she throws out some cheesy line like, oh yeah, or you think so, or some just really flat, cheesy line, and then they run and handle it. So it was, she had her moments throughout the show, but at a certain point in time, like he says, we finally blow up the station, but as we're on our way out, we realize what's going on, that this isn't a military facility, it's a science facility. They're doing something that has to do with cloning. We don't know what yet. We kind of are assuming they're talking about Grogu. Some people are assuming clone thingy, whatever's in that tube, has something to do with Palpatine, has something to do with Snoke. So there's a lot of assumptions that you can make from this episode, but there's nothing really concrete. But you can make a lot of assumptions. So there was a lot of interesting stuff that's going to set up, and like you said, that's what's really interesting, is we don't know if it's going to set up what's going to happen in Ahsoka, what's going to happen in Book of Fett, what's going to happen in the next season of Mandalorian. We don't know which show. We don't know if was it Rangers of the Republic is even happening anymore. So on anymore. So because of that, yeah. So we don't. There's a lot that could happen, and not to mention, you know, I feel like people are kind of waiting for this tie to happen between the Mandalorian and the sequels, all the new movies. And I don't think that's necessarily going to happen. And I feel like that's what people are waiting for, like this connection between the two.
I'm glad they say because I don't think it's going to happen. I straight up haven't thought it was going to happen since the beginning of the show. So I was nervous that you were looking for those connections. So I mean, if it happens, mad. But I'm not. I would assume, like, if you didn't tell me anything about the Mandalorian movies, I would have assumed the answer. You know, if it, I would be surprised.
Yeah.
Not like insanely surprised. But like it would be the least likely scenario to me. Speakers or whatever. It just doesn't need to.
Yeah.
Like that. It's almost like, you know, just because it's Star Wars doesn't mean they all have to be part of the same saga, persons, like the same galaxy. Yeah. So I mean, that's part of what I like about the Mandalorian so far, when compared to something like Rogue One. Yeah. Was that Rogue One did tie in a way that I was like, it didn't have to. It could have been, you know, a cool movie without tying into the same.
Not only that, but I think if you have watched Rebels and the cartoons, it actually is tying in more with that stuff than it is with the movies at all.
Right. It's for sure Dave Filoni all over it. It's tying into
all the stuff he's worked on. His universe. It's tying into all of that.
Like that. Yeah, for sure. I think that's neat. And if anything, it motivates me to watch something like Rebels. Haven't previously watched, and make sure that I understand.
At least I always recommend it if people at least watch the storyline between Rebels and Clone Wars and I'm pretty sure you can find which episodes they are, but the storyline about the Darksaber, just to even kind of get your background on the Darksaber, that's worth it. And those episodes are all really good because it is Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau working together in those episodes. Jon Favreau plays the voice of the character, so it's definitely worth a watch just for that. But yeah, like that being said, like I said, it seems like to me, if you were going to start trying to say what it's going to tie into, it seems more like it's tying into, like I said, the cartoons or that extended universe than it is the movies. So it's hard to assume that it's going to be Snoke or you know, the Emperor that's going to be tied into this, because it's like, well, we have the Darksaber, we have Bo-Katan, we have like all these things from. It
could literally be anybody in that too, and I agree that it ties way more into that universe. Even with the characters that they show, we're like, this is a character you know and love, and let's show them in the Mandalorian. It's not. It's usually a Clone Wars era character. Like you have Bo-Katan, you have Ahsoka. Like Filoni created characters, and those characters are the ones that are showing up as like not even Easter eggs, but like cameos in the Mandalorian. And then you know you've got your spoiler alert, your Lukes and your R2D2s and stuff, or your Boba Fett, but they're not as frequent. They're also not main characters of the Mandalorian, whereas Bo-Katan is shaping up to be a main character.
And I would argue that Boba Fett, you could even see much of the background that Dave Filoni filled in for Boba Fett, like at least his childhood. So there's a bunch of like teenage middle years we don't know a bunch about, but we at least know what Boba Fett's childhood was like. After his father had gotten killed, up until like him working with these kind of crime syndicates, and then eventually being able to get the Slave One and how that becomes his ship. We get that. So yeah, Dave Filoni, he's worked, at least if he hasn't created these characters, he's at least extended these characters' backstories and pushed these characters' stories further. So again, if you're get Dave Filoni's body of work and see how that might tie into it versus, you know, the films. And obviously I think Dave Filoni has this like feeling like whatever George Lucas touched at some point in time is like sacred. So like he just leaves it alone. He creates stuff around it, but like
that's why I like what they're doing, because we had this conversation back on our old Talking Sith, but to me, like George, you can't. That was an argument I would have pretty consistently with prequel haters, because now everyone loves the prequels all of a sudden. But back in the day, you and I remember people talk trash about the prequels like nothing else. And to me, it's his world. He made it. We don't get to talk. We don't get to have these conversations without George Lucas. We would never had anything to experience. So to me, he can't do wrong. He literally, it's impossible because world. So whatever he does, you have to accept because he created it. So I like that Filoni seems to feel that way too. And you know, Lucas came into Solo and helped Ron Howard with you know some ideas about one of the scenes on with the Vesper and all that, or Vespa gas and all that, and that was cool to me. And I know that there was some set photos of George Lucas on set of Mandalorian season 2, and that's cool to me. I like when they bring him back for little connections, because it shows their it's not even a respect for him, but it's like a reverence, and that's why I really like Dave Filoni's involvement, because he does expand on the universe, but he doesn't ruin the universe that already exists. And there's a lot of people who want you to retcon out the sequel trilogy and stuff like that, and that just doesn't seem like something he would be likely to do, because he respects that the universe is why he gets to play with it. So it creates a deeper universe. Even when there's stuff you don't particularly like, you can make it interesting. Cooler character in the Clone Wars show than he is in the movies. Like there's a lot that makes it deeper without ruining it. And I have a lot of respect for that, for sure. I really don't particularly like. It's not generally something that ruins something I already did like, if that makes sense. Like I don't like Cara Dune, but that's not like they put Padme in the show and ruined her. It's Cara Dune. I do like that.
So speaking of Cara Dune, we get towards like the end of the episode. They were able to blow everything up. They got this new little bit of information. So Mandalorian, you know, Mando kind of has a fire under his butt to try to get to the Jedi now. We don't quite know who we know who the Jedi is, but I just mean at this point in watching, if you watched, you know, in order from the beginning as they came out, you didn't know. It was coming, but, you know, we hadn't seen her yet, I guess is what I'm looking for. So we're on our way there about it. On his way out, though, a tracking beacon, which is another important thing, a tracking beacon gets put on his ship. So Moff Gideon kind of knows where he's going and can figure out what's going on with him. So that's kind of the big piece of information we leave with as the episode closes. But the thing that I wanted to talk about that was kind of interesting was Cara Dune up for her show at the end of this episode. And so with everything going on in the news, Gina Carano, the woman who plays Cara Dune, she's now off the show. It's been like maybe 3 or 4 days now, I think the news has been out that she's been off the show. November, she's been kind of pushing the envelope a bit, posting stuff on.
Yeah, she's been posting stuff that is divisive for a while.
I almost looked up the tweets, but I didn't want to repeat them on the show. Like, I just didn't feel like giving them...
There's not a lot of attention we need to pay to it, because to me it's cut and dry. You say something your employer doesn't like, you get fired, because you're representing your employer at all times. I work for a company, a very large company, in retail, and if I say something on social media that doesn't align with that company's views, I expect to lose my job. And it's because you know, I mean, the Star Wars universe has some of the most divisive fans because there's a lot of opinions that differ. Like, I like the prequels. I hate the prequels. I like the sequels. I hate the sequels.
The sequels added a whole new level to it.
Right. That's a lot of what makes Star Wars what it is. But there's also a faction of Star Wars fans that are not cool. And
that's the nicest way to put it.
It's not like, if she had said this in 2018, it would be okay. That's not true. It's not a cool thing to say. And you don't Disney anymore if you say it. And I don't think that's that hard to understand. And there are some people who are like, well, I'm canceling my Disney Plus because I bet you too. And that's not fired when you do. The First Amendment doesn't protect you from your employer because it's their protect their image. If I had hired somebody who said something I disagreed with, it would be within my rights to fire them. So I don't think that's that confusing, but for some reason there are people who don't understand it. Yeah. And then so that's really what it could.
It's ridiculous.
But like you can't represent Disney. We saw it happen to Ray Park when he did something stupid on his Instagram. Darth Maul forever. Anytime Darth Maul was going to be in something, it was going to be Ray Park, and he lost that privilege. And the same thing happens all the time. Right now, Tim Allen said the same exact thing that Gina Carano said. And Allen's big in Disney. He's Buzz Lightyear. He's in the Santa Claus movies. It'll be interesting to see if Disney cuts him out too. But he didn't just lose Disney.
Tim Allen is Buzz. I mean,
Right. So I don't ever want to see someone lose their job or something, but I also don't want my universe permeated with people. Yeah. So it sucks. I feel bad that she said it. I have heard people who say, because I watch a lot of interviews about it and stuff with people who have an opinion about her, who know her, who have a lot of respect for who she is and say that she's a kind-hearted person. And that's all well and good. I don't have anything bad to say about her personally, other than acting. What she said was straight up, you can't say it. Yeah. And you really shouldn't even be thinking that way. It's not true. It's not, the world has, and it's just not an okay thing to be. So I
agree with you.
God. I have, honestly, the people are like, well, I'm, goodbye Disney Plus. All right, goodbye. Okay, I don't need you either. Like, honestly, the fact that all the comments are going to be about this is really annoying, because we said it in the past, but the loudest people are the ones who get the most attention. Yeah. But they're also the ones with the worst opinions at this point. And I just don't have a lot of patience for those conversations, especially when it pertains to something like this, where it's not Republican. It's not because she voted for somebody I didn't vote for. It's not because she, disagrees with me about religion or same-sex marriage, or she said something correct and dangerous to say, inflammatory. It was wrong, basically every level. And the fact that some people agree with her is not surprising. It doesn't make it less scary, but it's not surprising.
Yeah, especially nowadays. Yeah,
but it's you just can't say it, and you can't,
I just think
it's that way. And we saw it happen too with what was his the kid from the first episode who was the worst part of that, or the first season rather, who was the worst part of that season, the bounty hunter kid.
Oh yeah.
Came out and said some stupid stuff, and his dad is big Ant-Man and stuff like that as an actor. Star Wars is going to keep on kicking, and even we would be remiss to not mention Pedro stuff that you really probably shouldn't say. Yeah. But he deleted the tweet. He said one thing last year that was not cool. I'm sure he was warned. I'm sure Disney was like, "Look, stop," and he stopped. Yeah. She has been saying things for over a year now that are just
that's what I was gonna say. Is that that's what I think is like being lost. Is that it wasn't like once. She said like a couple not okay things, more than a couple not okay things over.
It was easily like can't do it. It was the worst of them. Like the only thing I can imagine her doing worse would be like dropping the N-word. Yeah. Or like like literally having a
I
swastika
don't know, like,
or something.
and without going into what she necessarily said, I'll say this. And not many people listen to our shows right now. We're getting around like 30-ish views around all our stuff, so we're pushing it more. So I don't feel badly saying this at all. I don't know what it is with people who have stuff comparing themselves to people who don't have stuff. Stop doing it. Like it will never, ever, ever. No matter what side you're on, Republican, Democrat, never. It doesn't matter side. Stop comparing yourself to legitimately like terrorized people. It's not gonna ever be real. You're fine. You're like, especially in Gina Carano's case, you're rich. You're very wealthy, and you work for Disney. You work for Disney.
Right.
You're fine.
Yeah.
You're fine. And you're really gonna compare yourself to people who were like not just disenfranchised, but one of the most like disenfranchised groups of people ever. And it's like, and you are literally okay. Stop doing it. You stop doing it. That's the biggest issue. Is it's like, I don't understand why. Again, on both sides, I don't get why people keep comparing themselves to,
sure,
who are actually in trouble.
Not a Democrat thing at all. And I understand that right now in popular culture, it's popular to be Republican. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't disagree with that. But a lot of that is, who you throw your hat into the ring with.
Mm-hmm.
And the president, pulled down a path that a lot of people disagreed with. So the fact that Hollywood is made up of 99.9% Democrats right now, I get that that's got to be something where you're uncomfortable working with people, maybe. But it's also, they're not having like an intelligent discourse. Like they're not having a conversation that results in growth for eating things publicly, not to somebody, and having a two-way conversation that is based on just BS
and sharing things that are not factual, that
has an audience. Like when you have a platform and you say nothing in times of peril, that's dangerous enough because you have to speak up for the little guy. But when you say something that's outwardly, overtly wrong, it's up people who don't have, like they have more teeth than IQ points, and they can't put the, it just sucks, and it's frustrating, and it's like you said, there's plenty of examples of politics going wrong in both directions.
In both directions,
in politics. I don't have respect for it as an industry, but that said, you can't compare yourself that died.
That
millions of them
actually suffered. That legitimately have suffered something. You can't do it.
It's not something you can expect.
And speaking to the Star Wars fan base, I just think it's so interesting. And I want to talk about this towards the end of our show, so that way we didn't spend too much time on it and we can kind of wrap on it. But I just think it's interesting that, right? And you have Rose Tico. I'm trying to remember the actress's name. You have that character who Kelly Tran, right? Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Kelly Marie Tran.
She probably won't ever touch Star Wars again, ever, because of the way she was treated by Star Wars fans. Just it had nothing to do with her, and I've said this before.
See, I don't think they're Star Wars fans.
But that's what I mean. Those same fans who ran her out are mad that Gina's getting kicked out. They're the same, like you said, quote unquote fans. But those are the same fans who the ones who are upset now that Gina's on her way out the door. Kelly Marie Tran out the door in the first place. And then they'll sit here and say, oh, you canceled her. You literally, destroyed her, up to a certain point. So,
right. There was a lot of,
I just think it's funny they can't see the irony in that.
Right. The thing that's most similar to the Gina Carano thing to me right now that I can think of that's going to just be immediately universally recognizable is the Kaepernick thing.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone who wants Gina Carano to have her job back, does job back. And it's the same Gina Carano back who doesn't ever want to hear Kaepernick's name again.
Yeah.
And now for me personally, I don't like Kaepernick.
Yeah.
I don't like, he's done a lot off the field that I have a lot of respect for. He was good.
Yeah.
So I don't think he needs a job in the NFL. And on top of that, he did some things that were straight up incorrect. Protesting the anthem wasn't one of them, but he did other things that people don't talk about anymore that he shouldn't have done. So it's a similar situation. He had an opinion. He lost his job. Move on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that he plays as well as other people who should be in the NFL.
But his political views has nothing to do with that.
No, for sure. His political views, yeah. I mean, if the NFL blackballed him for having a view that's different from theirs, it's kind of their right. It's their business, and
until they go back on it later on, and then they're like, "Sorry, guys."
That's right. That's the problem. Is now there's ads coming out with Stand United and kneel for the anthem or whatever you want to do, and his name is not mentioned, and that's wrong. It would be like if Disney in 5 years decides to run an ad saying, Republicans are like the Jews, and they don't name.
But yeah, that shows you in that statement. It shows you just how those differences, right? Because he was actually, whereas she's, what she's saying was legitimately hateful, and that's why I bring up Rose is because, I did not like her character in the movie. It was not my favorite character. I thought her story arc was bad, but it had nothing to do with Kelly Marie Tran at all. I think she's an adorable little lady and I was so happy to have her in the movies as an actress because of how much she was into Star Wars. I thought that was really cool. It's always fun to have people in Star Wars who love Star Wars. Star Wars nerds in Star Wars is great for me. But then once the movies came out, you had all that hate for her. And it was for not just her character, but for just like I said, I just thought it was so funny that the irony of these people who kick this girl out can't see that the girl who's getting kicked out, they're this level there. It's just very funny to me. But Star Wars fans are tough. They're very tough.
Are the people who want Gina Carano back? LeBron James should never talk about his political opinion, but Gina Carano should be able to say whatever she wants. You can't have it both ways.
Yes.
And also, LeBron James has never said anything offensive, about people who have died.
Yeah.
It's just, it hasn't happened. Yeah. It's not that stupid.
And I think that's also the thing is what she said. That's the thing is that stating your opinion is not wrong. Right.
I like that. She said it's people who died, and that's just, it's incorrect. Yeah. And the thing about it that I don't want to because I agree, it could go down, cancel culture is wrong, and I have problems with cancel culture too, and up in arms about this Republican, and they shouldn't it's not it isn't that storyline. She said something actively stupid. It was a
thank you. That's exactly what I feel like we're giving her too much credit.
It was a dumb thing to do. Even if she believed it, it was stupid. It didn't make sense to say.
It's a bad thing to believe. Yeah.
Right. It's a bad thing to believe, but it's dumb to be like, okay, I believe this. Now let me tweet it to my millions of followers and see what happens. It's just stupid. It doesn't make sense to do.
I honestly think that it was, and again, I don't know, but I think the way that it played out, it didn't seem like it was intentional, but it seemed like it was, they're going to fire me anyway. It seemed like at this point, I'm already halfway out the door. Or they told her, listen, your show's not happening. Maybe we'll give you a couple, reoccurrences on Mando, but your show's done. So she's like, well, screw it then. I'm out. You know what I mean? And was just let me, because I just don't understand why you would go through with posting that, knowing that you have a deal with Disney. And
you're set up for. Yeah, no, I agree. That's exactly what I was going to say. I think that what she said, because I have seen the argument in, comment sections and stuff. I've seen the argument where what she said is being in B proportion, where her opinion is actually kind of legitimate. She just shared it in a really dumb way. If that's your argument, I'm not going to sit here and argue with those people because I don't agree. But if that is your argument, I could see that maybe she just said something she shouldn't have said, and she should immediately take it back and apologize, which she didn't do.
No, she's not.
It's also been over a year of dumb tweets. I did see a video Andy posted actually of it was an interview with a guy, or not an interview, but him just talking at the camera, of a guy who is an MMA writer, and he's interviewed her before. The guy's Jewish, back for her. He's like, look, the Gina I know is a nice person. She just posted this, and it was a stupid thing to post, and maybe she shouldn't have posted it, and she knows that now, and I hope she does. That might be fine, but Instagram was the next day of a dude with like a dollar bill, taped over his mouth saying, this should be or whatever. Like, it's not a remorseful situation, and what she said was,
And then she went on to join Ben Shapiro's film company and is making a movie with him now. So she's just like you said, she beelined down that lane. Like, once she decided to take that lane, she would go.
Yeah, and the agents let her go too. She a CAA, which, to those who don't know, that's the largest agency. Everyone, and not just actors, but everyone. Yeah. And I gotta imagine it's not that hard to connect the dots. My opinion, all right, this is weird. It's a tangent. Act professionally. I've had an agent personally. And so I know how the conversations go sometimes. And when you say something that doesn't line up with what they want you to represent for the agency, they have a conversation with you.
Yeah.
And there's a PR person there who tells you, next, this is how you can handle it, and you'll be fine. I've never had those conversations because I wasn't that successful. I wasn't like a huge name that people knew. So I didn't have that kind of, frankly, if I did something stupid, I would just lose my job. Yeah. But she, I'm sure, had an agent call her and be like, hey, you messed up. Yeah. Here's what you do next. You tweet, I'm sorry. You tweet that my opinion necessarily how I would say it or something. Yeah. There's a million ways to walk it back a little bit without selling out that you're a Republican. Because I know lots of Republicans that I have a lot of respect for. Not Republicans, but Republicans. Yeah. And she'll say, look, I wish I didn't. I just feel uncomfortable right now, Republican, and we need to work on that. Or something that is still stupid, but not offensive. Here you go.
Because the sentiment of what you're saying isn't really stupid. I get it. You feel like you can't. Man, it must be really difficult now sitting on a show here with Black Man. It must be so hard to not say, not be able, oh my God, the frustration. This is what I mean. Stop comparing yourself to actually subjugated people.
Yeah. The funny thing is, this is how I think the conversation went with her agent. And agent is probably Jewish. Her agent was probably like, hey, this is what you said. I know you. I'm a good person. You said something I don't agree with. That was despicable. Let me help you get out of it. He said, here's my finger. I'm not saying that. And they said, okay, cool. You don't work here anymore.
Yeah.
I'm sure both Disney and her agent had a conversation with her just like that.
Yeah.
Because they invested money in her. She cost them a lot of money. And there's also, like, the thing that sucks about things like this show getting
that's a big
canceled.
Deal.
That's like a writing staff, a directing staff,
a big deal.
Art. Like, that's without even considering the talent. Like the actors, whatever, they're actors. Like, they're just going to get another job. Right. But there are people who are non-union, or if they are unionized, that's their whatever. And carpenters and food service people, and there's just to me really selfish of her.
Yeah.
Because now there's people who lose their jobs who that was a big deal.
Yeah.
Or their breakthrough writing credit, or their breakthrough directing job, or whatever.
Exactly.
And there's a lot of people.
Yeah, think about that young actor who was like getting looked at to play some sort of something, bounty hunter, this, that. Their bread now is either not going to happen or, well, not going to happen. So, I mean, yeah, you're right.
There's a lot more to think about than just the fact that she doesn't get to work in Disney anymore. That impactful thing that's going to happen from this is that she doesn't work.
And real quick, because before we wrap up, I think we talked about this a little bit off stream, but this is the one question that's being asked right now: recast her altogether. I think it's so easy to just get rid of her that you just get rid of her.
Yeah. No, I agree. The show upgrades by the removal of her character. Without considering her as a person, you remove her character, and I think the show is better. Just personally. but I don't need a recasting. And I think
that what you get from that storyline is easily replaceable by another character. Like what we're getting from that storyline is nostalgia from the war. We're getting,
right.
you know, like you said, that kind of kick-ass drop soldier, you know, kind of mono type character. You know, it's not hard to replace. And bring back Mayfield. Bring back Mayfield and just pop him in that scenario.
That's actually an example of somebody who is the other side of the political aisle who has said things that are plenty offensive. Mm-hmm. Like he said things straight up wrong. Mm-hmm. That's the difference. There are plenty of Democrats out there who say things I disagree with. He's one of them. And yeah,
and I think the thing with Bill Burr is that being a kid, and we can get so deep into this, but being a kid where you do have a little bit more leeway to say, because your job is to say things that other people won't, or that other people can't, or that's a little bit more edgy. And Bill Burr does have when he is being offensive, it's to everyone. He's offended. Like if you haven't been, there's something wrong. Like he should have offended you at this point. So it is interesting, but again, people want to try to make this a complicated situation, and part of it is when it comes to free speech. And however, what was said by Gina Carano isn't complicated. What she said was wrong. There's no complication to it. And that's just kind of where it lies, as far as with this show goes and how we feel about it. It was just wrong. Like I said, it was interesting because as I was kind of planning for the show, I was like, oh man, we got to cover episode 4. She's kind of the main focus of this episode, and she's the main focus of the news right now. Not just regular, news apps and Star Wars news is on those news apps. I'm like, oh god, here we go. So that was interesting. But guys, again, that's the greatest thing about Star Wars is that you can find your pocket of sequels, prequels, originals, disappear into it, and you're good to go. You don't have to listen to the craziness or the nonsense. But yeah, it is an interesting conversation to have. Can you separate I don't think you can. I think sometimes you have to make that distinction. But listen, guys, it's been a little bit. It's been about an hour and a half. We went a little bit because I did think it was important to cover with the way the world is now. It was definitely important we get it covered. So thanks for the awesome music to see us out. Too bad you're not here. I appreciate it. You guys can find us out. I just want to say, make sure you go over to Morel's Macarons on Instagram to get yourself some love, and check out O&E Customs. If you need any customed masks or shirts, they got you covered. ONEcustoms.com and Morel's Macarons at Facebook and Instagram. And you can always find us on Instagram and Facebook. Hopefully I'm trying to get us regularly doing it on Thursday nights-ish, so look for us then. And now we have enough episodes where Apple will actually let me put our show up on iTunes. Before they're very strict, you have to have a certain amount of a library, and so now we have enough time to get our stuff up on iTunes. So you guys will be able to find us there soon. But thanks again, Adam. I appreciate you joining me. Next time we get together, hopefully this upcoming Thursday, we'll talk about episode 5, and we'll be covering whatever other news there is, and hopefully we'll have Chris back. But yeah, I appreciate it, man. Thanks again.
No, thank you.
And like I said, guys, I'm Chaz. I'm your host, and Thursday night around 8 o'clock. And as always, Talking Sith. See you later, Rivers. Is he playing some more? What are we playing this week?
Mario Kart again.
Oh, Mario Kart again. Hey, listen, consistent. Rivers, we'll see you later. And guys, we'll